who want to do something a little different. Kind of want to explain my thought process when I make something from scratch. A lot of times I don't really know what I want to do, and so sometimes I just jump in and start playing around with picking sounds and hitting notes. Unless I have something specific in mind, like a specific type of artist or style I'm trying to make, usually maybe I'm feeling a certain type of instrument, like a guitar or some sort of more like a synth or something like that, and so I just go based off of that. But today I'm not feeling any particular kind of way. Maybe I'll do like a kind of a pluck sound. You don't even have to choose a sound you like first. You can just jump into getting some chords. No right or wrong way, it's just whatever you like to do. But sometimes a new sound will spark some ideas that you wouldn't have thought of if you were using the same sound to make your melody every time, is what I've found. So when I'm clicking through here, really I can't necessarily describe what I'm looking for. I guess I'm looking for something fairly melodic. Like I'm kind of imagining using chords or multiple notes, and so I want something pretty simple to start out with, I think. And then as far as the tone, it's just like I just pick a tone that kind of sticks out to me for some reason. Like this one's pretty cool. It's pretty dry sounding. I like the way this one sounds enough. We can always change it later, so we'll just hop in. So here, we're faced again with like another blank canvas, right? Literally a lot of times, unless I have a melody in my head or kind of a vibe. What's up? I want to be famous. How's it going, man? I basically just, like literally a lot of times I'll start clicking on notes and I'll just pick a note that for some reason sounds like I want to start with it. Like, it doesn't matter. The note you choose really doesn't matter. Like, it can be super arbitrary. For some reason, I'm picking this one. Doesn't matter. And I kind of have in mind to do some chords, but actually let's play around with a little bit of a melody because I want to show you something. If I just like pick a note then that sounds good after this note. Like the next note here, like your mood or whatever vibe you like to play is gonna make a difference. Cause look, if I play these two notes, it sounds like kind of dark and eerie, but if I like play these two notes, it sounds a lot more happy, right? So kind of what vibe you like is going to dictate where your melody goes, and it doesn't really matter. You can just play around with it and see what sounds better to you. Like I literally just decided between these two notes and I went with the one that sounded happier. And this note sounds like it kind of leaves you in suspense, and it feels like it should resolve with this note. So like there's no theory going on in my head. I don't know that much theory to begin with, so I'm literally just picking some notes that to me sound good together. Like already it's pretty cool. And then once we start adding low notes to go with it, a lot of times you get an idea of whether it's actually going to be cool or whether it's going to be kind of lame. And literally what I'll do for now is I'll just copy this over because I like it enough. We can make some little changes, and this is just something I like to do a lot. Like I've realized this works for me and I can make stuff I like by trying this, and it's just kind of like a pattern I've recognized. I don't want to just let this keep repeating a lot because that would get kind of stale. I think it sounds good repeating twice like this, and then we're going to change it up. And an easy change up that I like usually is moving around this low note here. And see, that sounded off. Okay, and this is all well and good. I think we'll copy it over again actually and change it up a little bit more for the second half. I've just found like the beat gets more boring the more repetitive it is. So if you can stretch it out and just make a couple small adjustments, then it keeps it interesting. If you're changing notes all over the place, it's hard to listen to. It starts sounding really random, and this is all just my opinion and like my taste. But if it sounds too random to me, I can't like follow along, and I want to kind of predict where the song's going, but then have surprises in it. Appreciate it, man. So we're gonna change up the second half just like a little bit. I feel like this needs to be sped up a little bit, so I'm gonna increase the tempo. I like that better. Okay, so this is like kind of just, it sounds nice, but I don't know if it's enough. We probably will want to add some like other melody elements to it, whether it's just some background ambience or like a more defined lead. So literally we can just play around with it. I'll try adding some notes on top here maybe, or some notes down here. Generally I don't like cluttering up one area of the piano or the keyboard too much, because you start everything is kind of fighting for attention once the notes are too close together, and it's hard to like pick out the melodies and stuff like that. So it's better, I think, if you can separate them and use kind of the whole keyboard, I guess, the whole frequency spectrum. All right, so we'll play around with some stuff. Literally don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna start clicking notes and see if I can come up with something that I like. And the sound is kind of a lot, so I probably am going to move these to a different instrument, just because I feel like the tone, the lower tone sounds better for this instrument. Up here it feels kind of thin or something, so we'll just try these on another VST, I think, or just like another instrument. See how like all of a sudden, I mean, there's a little bit to do with like the volumes and stuff, but just changing this to a different sound really makes it stand out a lot more and makes the rest of it feel a little more background. So there's little pieces like that you start to figure out like what the beat still needs, or what the melody still needs, to kind of make it feel finished and not just feel like it's like a background or it's too much going on and stuff like that. So this feels like a little more like you pay a little more attention to this part and what this melody line is doing, where the other one feels like it's just kind of adding to the vibe of the song. I like this one. It's too repetitive though. Okay, and so it's hard to know sometimes, like, do I stop with that? Do I keep adding more? I know from just kind of my own preference and the style of stuff that I like to make that I'll probably try adding another layer or two, just because it allows you to take some stuff out and put some stuff back in throughout the song. And also, like, I feel like there's still some space. At some point it'll feel like I can't come up with another good idea that fits, or things start clashing or something like that, and then that's usually like a good point for me to back off. But there's really no right or wrong. People like to say keep things simple, and I think that can be a good motto for sure. But there's some of my favorite songs have a lot of stuff going on, and so there's just kind of whatever you feel like doing, I guess. If you're just making stuff for you, like if you have a specific artist in mind that you want to potentially use the beat, then that's definitely something to keep in mind. But for right now, I'm just kind of giving myself freedom to do whatever I feel like. One thing I like to do a lot of times is add something that's kind of adds some syncopation or some rhythm to it, and isn't necessarily adding another melody line. I'll show you what I mean. So I think the reason I did this is because I noticed all the notes I was playing were just pretty much on, I guess, these, what is this, like quarter note or something like that. Like nothing was syncopated, everything was very much just like on metronome. So I wanted something to give it a little bit more like swing or a little more bounce, I guess you could say. Feel a little less robotic. Just changing it up a little bit. For some reason in my head it sounded like those notes could have sounded good in different spots. And like, I don't know, sometimes when you start, like if you just listen to it, sometimes you can start to almost like hear what might be a good melody idea in your head based on what the other notes are doing, and then you can kind of try and get that idea out of your head and on the piano roll. One thing I like to try and do once in a while is turn off a layer or two and see if it sounds super empty, because as the song, once we start laying this out into a full song, as the song progresses, we don't want these three loops to just loop the entire time, because that would get really boring. But sometimes, like if we turn these two off and just leave this playing, like that's not going to be enough. That's going to feel probably too empty, and for me anyways, to like that. So just pairing some things together and seeing what works to drop out or to bring back in, and it maybe gives you an idea of where there's some space for something you would want to add in there. So like I'm imagining with this point, if we had some really mellow like pad chords or something like that, we could do a little bit of a change up right before a hook or something like that, and then after that it mellows out, and then we bring this back in for some more energy. But it's not enough like this, so we're gonna add something in here. And I wanted to probably play off this is kind of an arpeggio, or I guess you would call it that, I think, how these are basically chords, but we're playing them one note at a time. So I'm gonna copy this over and use this to just build more straight up chords and see if that sounds good. I want something pretty like thin and kind of airy or breathy or something like that. That's kind of like a synth pad, but really simple, not a lot of movement or anything like that. Something kind of like this, actually. This one's a little dark. Oof, that one ended up doing way too much. Let's do sound match on this one and see if anything else comes up, because this one was close to what I think I wanted. A lot of these are too full sounding. Too much. Those are swelling too much. I want it to be pretty even. I wonder why I'm not liking any of these really. Could be that it's too many notes in the chord. This is alright. I think let's move forward with this maybe and play around with the chord structure. Maybe that's what it is. It's like too low. So we might want to move some of these notes out of here. Take the same notes but move them up here a little bit and see how that sounds. I like that. It adds a little bit of more motion, you notice, because it's up at this higher frequency. Hey, what's up, Kana? This is kind of slow though, like this part, so I might change the sound or copy this over and do kind of something with a little more motion. Yeah, so quite a bit of copy paste stuff with the same notes, just because adding some layers can sometimes add a lot of texture and stuff without having too much conflicting notes and melodies and chords and stuff like that. So this is like a cool trick I kind of learned, I think, watching tutorials, but just taking chords and trying out like some ARPs, because sometimes there's some cool stuff in here and it can work as like a good way to add some motion, or it can just add some cool energy or like a cool sound to it. So to me, this is like a probably done. Like, I don't think we're gonna add much layers now. We maybe will end up adding some stuff or taking some stuff out later, but this is probably the point. Like, there's enough going on here, enough energy for like a hook if we brought all these in. For some reason, one of these patterns I kind of want to change, but I think I'm gonna leave it for now instead of playing around with it, because it's not bad. Drums. Usually, like, I decide whether I'm gonna do a clap or a snare, and I do start with just kind of something to get the drums going with the clap and the hi-hat here. I'm kind of split between a clap and a snare, so I'm just gonna do a clap. They gotta sound a little bit beefy. I don't like claps that are super thin, but it's all just preference. And for the hi-hat, in my head there's kind of like 3 different types in my head. There's like kind of 3 different types. There's like super hard hitting ones that are really clicky. Usually I don't use those too much, and I like kind of softer ones, and then there's some that almost have like no snap to them. It's almost more ends up being like a shaker, and I kind of go back and forth between those, and it's just kind of like try something out and see what I like. But on this one, like, I'll click on some hi-hats and see what I like, but it's probably going to be like kind of a soft hi-hat. So this I would consider like a soft. This one's almost like gonna sound like a shaker. This one's pretty soft, but like these are very like clicky, very harsh. This one's a little brighter sounding. I like that. So part of it, I think the reason maybe I'm picking this one, I've never thought about before, but this melody's got a lot of like ambience to it, and it's kind of all kind of muddies together a little bit. Like, I don't know that it sounds muddy, but I think I'm probably gonna end up picking drums that are a little sharper and a little more bright, so that they stick out of the melody a little bit more. Another thing I find is that just taking out notes can sometimes, like, I'm just taking out the clap notes right now, but just taking out notes sometimes can make as big of an impact as adding in notes adding in hi-hat hits. Just having that extra space allows you to put some other stuff in there, or just leave it open and kind of let it breathe for a second. Kind of like that. Like, I like that, so I might actually keep that going. This order is usually just kind of, I've tried all kinds of orders. Like, I've tried adding kicks in first or 808s. Sometimes I still, once I have the melody down, I get an idea for what I want to do with the 808 and I go straight to that. But having the claps in the closed hi-hats kind of gives me a starting point and a structure that I can build around. So right now I'm looking for kind of some additional drum sounds, probably like a rim of some kind, or some kind of like digital percussion sound, and then we'll add an open hat probably and get to the bass. And it kind of is like going to be preference for me as far as like, when am I done adding stuff? Like, when is there too much? When is it not enough? It's all just like up to taste, I think. You can, again, like, I've heard drums that are super cluttered and it sounds really good to me. And I've heard drums where it's literally like this. It's basically just like this, like straight up 8th note hi-hats and a snare and it sounds good to me also. For some reason, like these drum sounds, like this drum pattern's just okay. I'm gonna like try and move it along and get to the 808, I think, and start laying stuff out, just because for some reason, like, I don't know if I've been listening to this too much or what, but I'm like stalling out a little bit on the placement of some of these drums. So we're gonna try and keep it moving, and we can always come back to these once we have kind of everything laid out, and maybe even with some fresh ears later, it'll be easier to hear where things should be hitting and where they shouldn't be. Okay, let's actually EQ some of these sounds real quick. The bass here. Okay. 808 pattern is a lot like how I do melodies. Like I typically hit on the first note just because I want it to punch for like a drop. But after that, like, there's kind of patterns that are maybe go-to patterns, but really I just kind of listen and try and feel where I feel like they should hit. And a lot of times I keep a super simple melody pattern with the 808 and then change it up from there once I know kind of the basic structure of where I want them to hit and what notes I want them to hit. I can like pitch some stuff up, pitch some stuff down, add like some triplets and doubles and stuff like that. Oh, okay, these notes are way too low. That's what the issue is here. So we'll probably pitch things down because I usually like my 808s to be closer to C5. The 808 is usually, I spend just about as much time or maybe the most time on this. To me, like, this is one of the most important parts of the song, and like it can add a lot of like bounce, it can add a lot of like energy, but you can also overdo it and have it be too much. Yeah, I'm really overthinking it. We're gonna transpose up a few semitones here. We'll go up quite a bit actually, and then I'm gonna pitch these 808 notes down a whole octave. Adjust the 808 a little bit. I got worse at explaining what I'm doing as time went on. So the 808, I wanted to hear a little bit more of higher frequencies, so I boosted it, which I think is essentially distorting it a little bit. And then I'll probably EQ a little bit of the high end up a little bit, just because if you're listening on your phone or something and it's this, you're not really going to hear any bass. You probably won't hear anything at all really, other than maybe like kind of a kick sound. So I'm going to try and bring out some higher frequencies. It just sounds cool to me anyways, but if you're listening on like a laptop speaker or phone speaker or something like that, it really helps it come through a lot better. And then for the EQ, we can literally just like bring up some of these frequencies a little bit better to taste. Like, I don't like it to be fuzzy sounding, but I like a little bit of buzz. I try to go back to my stuff that I like post on Spotify or YouTube or whatever, or even just have on my phone and listen to it on my phone occasionally, just because like I've started mixing my hi-hats way down in the mix and stuff like that, just because I used to have them sound what I thought was good on headphones, but they were like overpowering on any kind of like tinny sounding speakers. So finding a balance there is kind of hard between devices. But okay, so this is decent, I think. I'm going to start second guessing myself. I wonder if I should just move on to doing kind of a rough structure, and then if I want to make some adjustments to patterns, I can always come back and do that. I wasn't sure I wanted to have this part here at the beginning because I thought it would add a lot of energy. Yeah, it really does. I kind of want to have that come in right here for the first time. And this is almost kind of a verse maybe here, and then we bring in like this synth part for like even this. See, now what I'm struggling with is all of this almost just sounds like it's pre-hook stuff, like verse and then a little bit more development, but still like pre-hook, and I'm not sure that I have the layers for the hook that add like that extra bit of energy. But it might also just be the vocals that I don't have. Yeah, dang. So I'm like really second guessing myself on a lot of stuff now. Okay, that's cool. I like that, dropping that synth out. Okay, it feels like then we need like to let the drums, take the drums out here, let it breathe a little bit, and then come back in for the hook, I think is what it feels like. This feels a little slow. I might speed up the tempo a little bit more. We might add something to spice up the second half of the hook here a little bit. But I think this is the general structure that I'm feeling right now. We'll bring some drums back in here a little sooner, this second verse. I maybe will end up changing these 808s for the verses the hook. A lot of times I try and I'll probably keep it a little bit mellow in the verse and have it be a little more interesting in the hook. This part feels pretty slow to me. Like I probably will try and add something in here, maybe a synth bass or something to give it a little more energy. I was gonna speed up the tempo. But at this point, it's really just all experimenting with like taking stuff out, taking pieces out, adding them back in, changing up the energy a little bit, having some mellow parts as well as some higher energy parts. And a lot of these ideas are just things that like I've listened to other songs and picked up on them doing that, or like just by trial and error trying stuff. A lot of times like I'll try adding some halftime or effects to a melody at some point. Just sometimes it sounds better and I don't even use my original melody anymore, or sometimes like it just makes a cool change up at some point in the beat for like a pre-hook or something like that. But I'm getting to the end here, I think, of where I would typically at least stop and take a break and then come back with like fresh ears once I've forgotten what the beat kind of sounds like. And that's a good opportunity for me to then like see what's sticking out to me. Like there's certain maybe 808s that feel out of place, or certain parts of the melody come in too soon or too late kind of thing, that I can't hear right now. Yeah, fresh ears are super important. Like at this point, like I am almost just passively listening just because I've been listening to it so long. So everything sounds like pretty fine, but I'm sure once I come back and listen to it, I'll be like, okay, like right away, I want to move that. I want to like adjust this. I want to play around with this drum pattern. It sounds boring, or it sounds like there's too much going on kind of thing. So let me just play around with a couple things real quick and we'll wrap it up. I think think just having that pitched up is pretty cool without the halftime. The halftime, honestly, the pattern's not moving around enough for the halftime to be that interesting. So, but I did like having that pitched up option, and that might actually be a good change up for the second half of the hook or something. We can try it. Yeah, I kind of like that. It really is just pretty, it's not like a big change, but it just breaks it up a little bit. I think for like this part here, I may end up adding like a high cut filter or something and a synth bass. Play around with some stuff like that, but I'm not too mad at how this has turned out so far. And it's been like, I've been working on it for like quite a while now. Yeah, like almost 2 hours on this. So I think I'm just gonna call it a night. Thanks for listening, and yeah, I'll talk to you later.